She was running for her life, with 3 wolves closing in behind her. Anne had escaped the brutal man who claimed she was his property, carrying one thing that could destroy him, proof of his crimes. But she never expected to run straight into the territory of Jacob Hawthorne, the powerful Alpha King. When he learns why she's being hunted, Jacob makes a dangerous choice. He will protect her, even if it means starting a war. But Anne is more than a woman he rescued. She awakens something in the lonely king that he can no longer ignore. And when Jacob finally realizes his wolf has chosen her as his mate, he must fight not only to save her life, but to win the heart of the woman who has changed everything. The smell was the first thing he noticed drifting from the tree line. It was soft, delicate vanilla mixed with fear. Then he noticed movement with a desperate stumbling speed that spoke of panic, not purpose. He had been traveling the borders this morning with the hot sun pressing down on the back of his neck. He stopped, his eyes narrowed. The movement resolved itself into a person, a woman, her dark hair undone and whipping behind her as she ran. She was still a quarter-mile out from him and headed his way. By instinct, he dismounted his horse to prepare for what was coming. Alpha King Jacob was as solid as a wall and known for his silence. His solitude was a kind of armor that only he knew it was brittle. Trouble, when it came to a place like this, did not come knocking politely, and there it was. A rising plume of dust behind the running woman, thicker and faster than any dust devil. Wolves, 3 of them, running hard. They weren't chasing with whoops or hollers. They were methodical, as if running down a weakened doe, confident in the outcome. Jacob watched her fall, scramble up, and keep running, her gray dress covered with dirt with bloodstains. She was heading for the only shelter in a 12 square miles, his hidden cabin. He could have turned his back. He could have walked inside, barred the door, and become a deaf and blind man for the next hour. The territory was full of men who had survived by mastering the art of not seeing. But something in the straight, rigid line of her back as she forced herself to her feet again caught in his throat. It wasn't just fear. It was defiance. She was determined to get away. He made the decision in the space of a single heartbeat. When she finally collapsed into the shade of a lone cottonwood tree, gasping for air, he was there. He didn't offer a hand. He offered a canteen. "Drink," he commanded. His voice was rough from disuse. She looked up, her face streaked with dirt, tears and dried blood, her chest heaving. She was young, maybe 25, with eyes that were black and deep and held a terror so profound it was almost calm. She was dressed in a simple gray silk dress that was torn at the edges. She took the canteen with a shaking hand and did as he said, sipping the lukewarm water with all the control she could muster. "They will be here in a minute," he stated. It was not a question. She nodded, her eyes fixed on the approaching group. "They want something I have." She looked at him. "Get in the cabin," he said, turning his back on her to face the wolves. "Stay away from the window." She hesitated for only a second, then scrambled to her feet and disappeared inside the dark doorway of the cabin. Jacob walked deliberately to the porch steps and sat down. The threat of him was louder than any action. He just sat, a plain man on a plain porch, waiting. The 3 wolves came up 50 yards from his cabin. The wolf in the middle was thick-set with a wide face and gray hair that looked out of place on the trail. He was the one in charge. The other 2 were simply hired muscle, their faces blank and nervous. The one in charge said, "We seem to have lost something." Jacob didn't answer. He watched the lead wolf's eyes flicker toward the cabin door, then back to him. "A girl," he continued, his voice reasonable. "Wandered off from the camp. We're just looking to escort her back. Property, you know." "No, I don't know. In my territory, Omegas are not property and are free to choose," Jacob said, his voice flat. The leader's smile tightened. "I am Bartholomew Shaw, foreman for the Austin Castle. We have a schedule to keep. That girl is a bonded laborer. She broke her contract." "Looks more like she was running for her life," Jacob observed, his gaze steady. Appearances can be deceiving, Shaw said smoothly. Now we don't want any trouble. We'll just take the girl and be on our way. You can go back to whatever it is you do out here. The dismissal was clear. You are nothing. This does not concern you. Jacob shifted his weight slightly. This is my territory. You're trespassing. The girl isn't here. You've wasted time chasing shadows. Shaw's politeness finally cracked. A flicker of cold anger showed in his eyes. He glanced at his wolves. He says she isn't here. They looked at each other. We saw her run this way, boss. Straight for this shack. Then I suppose we have a contradiction, Shaw said, looking back at Jacob. I find that when a wolf lies about one thing, he's usually lying about everything. Makes me wonder about that claim of yours. Your territory. The Alpha King would have something to say about that. He smirked. It was a direct threat, a promise of a different kind of violence. A floorboard creaked inside the cabin. It was a tiny sound, but in the tense silence it was as loud as a gunshot. All three wolves heard it. Shaw's ugly smile returned. Well, now sounds like you have a mouse in the house. Jacob knew he was outmatched 3-1, but retreating now was not a choice. He had seen Shaw's kind before. They didn't stop until they had everything. Therefore, he stood up slowly. You heard me, he said, his voice dropping into a low growl. This is my territory. The next wolf to pass that cottonwood tree without an invitation is going to find out how seriously I take that. Shaw considered him for a long moment. He saw a weathered wolf, whose face was a roadmap of sun, wind, and battle scars. But he also saw the stillness in his hands, the utter lack of fear in his eyes. This was not some dirt-scrabbling farmer. This was something else, something stronger and more dangerous. Shaw was a businessman. He understood risk. This isn't over, Shaw said, his voice losing its false friendliness. I'll have what's mine. He turned around, his men following suit. They ran away, not in a panic but at a deliberate pace that was its own kind of threat. Jacob watched them until their dust was just a smudge on the tree line. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The immediate danger had passed, but he knew with a cold certainty that the real trouble had just begun. Bartholomew Shaw was not a man to forget a debt or an insult. Let us know what you think about our story, and if you enjoy it, click subscribe so you'll receive notifications when a new audio from Alpha Love Stories Original gets uploaded. Now back to the story. The silence in the cabin was thick with unspoken questions. The woman, she had told him her name was Anne, had cleaned herself up as best she could with the basin of water he'd provided. She moved with a quiet efficiency, her earlier panic replaced by a watchful apprehensive. She had found a needle and thread in his sparse mending kit and was methodically stitching a tear in her dress. You should not have done that, she said, not looking up from her work. Done what? He asked, sitting at the small table observing her and noticing the trail of bruises from her face and peeking out from sleeves and the bottom of her dress. He had to suppress his wolf at the sight. Help me! You have put yourself in danger for a stranger. They crossed the border into my territory chasing a woman, he said simply, as if that explained everything. To him, it did. His territory was his life. An attack on one was an attack on the other. Mr. Shaw does not care about your territory, she replied, her fingers moving deftly. He only cares about what is on it or what passes through it, and he believes I belong to him. He called you a bonded laborer. She looked up then, her dark eyes meeting him. There was no fear in them now, only a cold, burning anger. He is a thief and violent. He brought 40 of us from Versant, promising good wages to lay track for the railroad. He pays us a fraction of what was promised and charges us double for food and board at the company store. We are not laborers. We are prisoners in his debt, and when we do not perform to his standards or question him, we are beaten. Anne looks down and chokes back a sob. Jacob didn't move. This was more than just a cruel foreman. This was an entire system of exploitation hidden away in the vastness of the neighboring territory. Anne reached into the sleeve of her gray dress. She pulled out a small leather-bound book no bigger than his hand and a pencil stub. She placed it on the table between them. "This is why he wants me back or wants me dead." He picked it up. The book was filled with columns of neat, precise characters next to columns of numbers. It was a ledger. "I can read. I kept the records for my father, who was a merchant. When I came here, Mr. Shaw thought a woman who could write would be useful. He had me keep the books for the camp." A bitter smile touched her lips. "He did not realize I was keeping 2 sets of books, one for him and one for the truth." She pointed to a page. "Here, he bills the Broughton pack for 10 pallets of swords. He buys 6. The rest of the money goes into Austin's pack pocket. Here he claims wages for 50 men. We are only 30. Every week he steals the wages of 20 ghosts." She flipped through the pages. "It is all here. Dates, amounts, shipping manifests. He foolishly let me see enough to send him to the royal dungeons." A cold understanding settled in Jacob's gut. This small book was a death warrant. Anne wasn't just a runaway laborer. She was a witness and a prosecutor holding the evidence that could destroy a powerful man. And he, Jacob, had just painted a target on his own back by standing between that man and his only threat. "He won't just ride in here again," Jacob said, thinking aloud. "Not in the daylight. He'll be smarter." "He will try to take your land," Anne said, her voice certain. "He threatened it. A man like that, his threats are promises. He will go to the land office. He will say you owe him money. He will bribe a clerk. He will produce a witness who says you have not paid your debt. The paper you hold will become worthless." The Alpha King laughed. Anne frowned. "I am not lying. This is what he does to people who cross him." "I believe you, but he will not do that to me," he says confidently. "How are you so bold?" She asks, genuinely curious how he could be so foolish to think it couldn't happen to him. "I am Jacob Hawthorne, the Alpha King of the Hawthorne Territory. I may own this cabin, but I own all the land to the northern mountain to the southern ocean. I want to see him speak to the land office." Anne dropped her sewing needle and jumped up and lowered herself in submission. "Oh, Your Majesty, I was not aware. Please forgive me." "Get up. I know I am not in proper attire and this cabin lacks royal amenities. It's my hideaway when I need a break." He shares this with her freely, even though no one else knows. Anne stood. She looked at him, really looked at him. She was trying hard not to shake. She hadn't noticed before, but he had a dominant aura, and now that the adrenaline ran off from the chase, her wolf let out a whimper. She felt something open inside, and a sense of calmness overwhelmed her. She felt a slight lightheadedness. He looked at her, at the quiet determination in her face. He could still tell her to leave. He could disappear into the mountains and not get involved. "Sit," Jacob commanded. "You look pale. I think we'll go to the castle, but only after you eat. The castle is a 3-day ride," he said. Anne's composure finally broke. A single tear traced a clean path through the dust on her cheek. "He will look for us." "I am planning on it," Jacob said. He stood up and walked to the door, looking out at the vast sky. He was making a choice that would cost him something, and that choice would start a battle. He was choosing to stand with this stranger, to take her fight as his own. He would take the ledger to the council, and in doing so, he was declaring war on Bartholomew Shaw and the Austin Pack. By the time the first snows dusted the mountain range, Anne's life was different. It seemed permanently changed. 2 months had passed since the trek to the castle had changed the course of her life. The change was visible not only on her body but also in her demeanor. The bruises faded. She smiled more and even allowed herself to laugh. The challenge from Shaw had come just as Anne had predicted. A man named Peterson, a messenger from Shaw's pack, came before the king with urgency. "The Alpha King has stolen property. Anne Voss is legally purchased property of the Austin Pack. The Hawthorne Pack has 3 days to return her or face repercussions," Peterson said matter-of-factly. Jacob's jaw tightened as he sat on his throne. "Anne Voss is in our territory, and by our ancestors' laws, Omegas are not property. Your claim has no ground here. She will remain free, and we will provide her asylum. If you continue to push the issue, we will have no choice but to retaliate." Peterson cleared his throat. Very well then. I will relay the message, but expect this will not be the last you hear from the Austen pack. Later that evening, Anne walked into the king's study. Your Majesty, maybe it is best if I leave. If they can't find me, there won't be a war. Jacob set down the papers he was reviewing and looked at her. The war is inevitable. For years we knew the Austen pack was doing bad trades, but we didn't have proof. Now that you have brought the ledger, we have been meeting with surrounding packs devising a plan of an allied attack. Anne's eyes widened. This is more than I imagined. I didn't intend on starting a war. I only wanted justice for the laborers. Tears filled her eyes. There will be justice for them and all who have been taken advantage of. It will be swift and soon. He stood up and walked over to Anne, who was standing by the doorway. She was trying to regain her composure. Jacob's voice softened. I've noticed you are fitting in at the castle. The staff look forward to seeing you, and the children enjoy your stories in the courtyard. I also notice you look happy. I don't want that to change. I want you to stay here. No matter what happens, I don't want you to leave. Anne blushed at his honesty. She didn't realize he paid attention to her. I do enjoy helping, and everyone has been so welcoming. I would like to stay, but I don't want to cause more trouble. If bringing happiness to my castle is causing trouble, then bring it on. He lightly laughs with a large grin spreading across his face. Anne chokes on a laugh. She doesn't remember seeing Jacob smile before. She likes it. You should smile more, she says shyly. You have given me a reason. Anne, I want you to know, these last couple of months since you have been here, I have felt something. I can't really explain it, but I feel lighter. I don't feel like life is so heavy anymore, and when I see you, I feel joy. It's like happiness that is bursting at the seams. My wolf feels it too. He longs for you. It is getting harder for me to stay away from you. Anne gasps. She cannot believe what the king is saying. He has feelings for her? She is only a laborer, an omega. He can't feel this way for someone of her ranking. Your Majesty, I'm not sure if this is appropriate, she stammers. He laughs loudly this time. It is appropriate if the feeling is mutual. What do you think? Your wolf might agree. Anne never thought about it, but sometimes thoughts would come in, but she always pushed them down. It was absurd. It was only gratitude for her rescue. It wasn't real. Or could it be? As she's looking at him, she notices her wolf looking at him with adoration. Her wolf is definitely infatuated. But what does she really think? She felt something when she looked at him in the cabin. He brought her peace, a stillness she could feel in her bones, a feeling that all will be right and everything is right in the world. She has felt it any time he was near. She didn't want to lose that feeling. She looked up into his piercing gray eyes. Where do we go from here? She asks in a whisper. Now we go to war. When I return, I would like to court you properly. We can go as slow as you like. Or maybe as fast, she says with a giggle, then covers her mouth. Shocked, she said it out loud. Jacob stammered at her response. Yes, or as fast as you want. Then he let out a hearty laugh. He took her hand in his, and as power flowed through them, lifted it up to his lips and kissed it. I promise I will be back for you, and I will spend the rest of my life making you happy. I want to hear that giggle every day, and I will make it happen. Anne basked in the energy and love she was feeling. Her wolf was happy, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she didn't have to chase anything. She didn't have to chase a job, money, or the next opportunity. Her life is here now, and the Alpha King wants to chase her happiness. Thanks for listening. If we can do anything better, let us know in the comments and click subscribe so we can continue to offer audio stories from Alpha Love Stories Original.